BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, and I want you to type either Ryuga is human or Beyblade brings community in the comments. If you want to type both, it's fine. I have a valid explanation for why I'm starting with this though. So let's get to the inspiration behind this video. A questionable bad take from Ryuga glazing, and now I'm hungry for glazed donuts. What started with, let's be honest, Nemesis didn't stand a change. Wait, was I supposed to say chance? I've made more mistakes in these videos, to be fair. Against Lightning El Drago. And the response was, you are kidding, right? TikTok knowledge. Nah, just facts. Nemesis would have never stood a chance against Prime Lightning El Drago. Now, this would be the part where you would expect me to make a dumb skit and disagree, but I'm actually going to not do that completely this time, because I actually understand where this person is coming from, but I want to approach this in a calmer way to explain why I find this logic faulty. If you remember, or you watched the episode recently by looking up Beyblade Metal Fusion episode 50 and 51, Gingka struggled against Ryuga a lot, and only after Gingka figured out what he needed to do, he was able to beat Ryuga. But here's a short version of this argument you can agree on and click halfway off for. Well, here's the thing. Ryuga fought Gingka, absorbing the powers initially from Pegasus, and then later from Dan and Reiki, Kumasake, and let's assume his brothers too. Tetsuya, Ryutaro eventually, Tobio, Hikaru, Tsubasa, Doji, and eventually Kyoya. Basically all of his opponents and Battle Bladers. And almost everyone in the Dark Nebula with the exception of you and maybe Reiji. Okay, well, what's your point? Well, how did Gingka win? Didn't Tsubasa, Kyoya, and Hikaru give him his power? Yep, Gingka had the power of 4 spirits, while Ryuga had the power of, let's say, 10 to 12 people max that he took it from. Well, what does that have to do with Ryuga being better than Rago? He clearly is. Well, Ryuga is better at Rago at one thing, but you'll have to get through the video for that explanation. But Season 1 Ryuga can't defeat Nemesis or Rago in a battle. Okay, explain how. Gingka needed the help from everyone to beat Rago. Yeah, everyone in the world that's a blader. Let's assume that everyone in the world Beyblades to some degree, and if you don't, there's still hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of billions of bladers coming together to give Gingka their power to defeat Nemesis. If it took that many people to give Gingka the power to beat Rago, how could a Ryuga with the power of a dozen people beat someone that required over hundreds of bladers to beat Nemesis? I guess you're right. And that's how the video was going to end, but I decided to rewatch episode 50 and 51, took a few screenshots, and I want to take a more kinder approach. Remember, while I respond to questionable takes, we don't attack the person, but I want to do a deeper analysis into this topic because while it's easy to say, oh, MFB fans are dumb, toxic, and delusional, as a delusional Metal Fight fan myself, I want to explain why this discrepancy may exist. While whether facts care about your feelings can vary, I think thanks to the weird combination of nostalgia and Ryuga's personal narrative, Ryuga feels pretty strong compared to Rago. But that comes down to a multitude of factors. Remember, Ryuga was the first, well, no, that was Doji. Although for kind of those antagonistic, that would be Kyoya. Anyway, Doji, then Ryuga were the first antagonists of the Metal Saga we were introduced to at the beginning of the series in the first arc, which comprised of the first 13 episodes, and Ryuga would always be lingering in the background with us learning more about how he screwed over Gingka and Ryusei's life, then the fact he met Yu, which led to Yu winning and causing Battle Bladers. Then when Tsubasa got revealed as a traitor, Ryuga started getting more active, and throughout the first arc he was responsible for putting half of the Battle Bladers contestants in a coma. And that's not to discredit Rago at all. The dude managed to take on 13 bladers at once. But I think because he showed up at the third arc of Fury, for some people they aren't as invested at him, since when you have an antagonist that's a big force that doesn't have any personal ties to the protagonist on the surface, though he does, since Rago inherited Nemesis as well, and Nemesis in the Dark Power caused the descendants of the Solar System bladers to work together, and also acquired a different subtype of legendary blades for resistance barriers, and also was basically the source of the Dark Power, which influenced Ryuga. So there is a story involvement there, and some personal involvement, but the role to stop his involvement and meet the bladers involved in stopping him, you could argue took more priority. However, I do know people wish Rago had more screen time and backstory to explore this, especially since in the manga, Rago was just Nemesis' avatar manifestation. So it could just be perception versus reality, and to be fair, with all the misinformation and people who haven't rewatched Beyblade seasons in a while going, you are going to forget a few things, even I forget things from time to time. Plus, while you can debate about whether or not Ryuga was stronger than Rago, both of them were not defeated alone. Even Season 1 talked about the fact that Gingka cannot defeat Ryuga alone, and something that has always bothered me with the critique of Gingka having plot armor is that in both Season 1 and 3, it's made very clear that he can't defeat these opponents either by himself or relying on a traditional shonen power-up based on rage, because the Dark Power feeds off negative emotions. Technically, the manga actually explains the fact that he and Pegasus get stronger through the show based on positive emotions. But when you think about the parallel in how Gingka and Ryuga both got stronger and how Gingka eventually defeated Rago and Ryuga, there's a fair argument to be had that we see positive forms of strength in asking for helping, cooperation, believing in yourself, not giving up despite a tough situation, or giving into negative emotions to get through sometimes. Heck, for this video, I rewatched episode 50 and 51 where Hyoma and Gingka point out to win against El Drago, they have to put their positive energy together. Gingka left everyone behind to face Ryuga because he didn't want them to get hurt but still had them emotionally. Though obviously having a bunch of people supporting you in person is going to feel a lot better in most circumstances. Ryuga tells us that El Drago robbed his friends, rivals, and adversaries' strength. Ryuga's battle strategy for anyone that can pose a challenge to him is to try and rage bait his opponent into giving him more energy by tapping into their insecurities or giving them false hope under the guise of wanting a challenge to bait them into using their anger so he can absorb it. Ryuga can't control the dark power while Rago can, and Ryu notes that those who try to control El Drago were taken over by the dark aura. And with that, El Drago and Pegasus, the choice depends on the choice of humans on how to use his power. Remember, human hearts allowed El Drago's power to grow that much, and just because it caused El Drago to go evil, doesn't mean its power can't be used by a human for more altruistic means, not just rely on its negativity for power. It's why Ryusei, aka Ryo, said Gingka needed to learn one thing missing to beat Ryuga, and it's to remember that Ryuga is a blader, and as much as he is a villain, he is a victim to the dark power. That was promised strength, but wasn't aware of the price until it took over his sense of self. It's why Gingka ultimately won. Rather than seeing the Dragon Emperor as an enemy that needs to be vanquished, he put that effort into saving him, and the dark power can't exactly feed off hope if the opponent is trying to help the host through it since it wants to eat that person's hatred. The problem is, Ryuga doesn't necessarily accept the fact that he's part of a Beyblade community. See, one thing you will consistently hear is that Ryuga's development was great in the first two seasons, and then Fury is where he wasn't written as well, and I disagree. Some people treat Explosions and Masters where he's this fully redeemed anti-hero who is helpful but just rude about it, and that's really only 50% of the story. The reality is Ryuga's still selfish, it's just that he's just not being that way towards the villains. Remember, in Masters, sure he helped Gingka train and give a hint on how to master Galaxy Pegasus' full power, and sure he gave Tsubasa some advice, but did anyone stop to ask, what and why did Ryuga have to gain from that? Oh yeah, he hated the fact there was also another left rotation Beyblade and wanted to be considered the only one that had one. Then there's the fact he hated how the dark power used him, and if he could master El Drago and rid it of its evil human interference, Tsubasa should embrace it to overcome it like he did. Remember, Hyoma had to track him down in Hyoma's last speaking appearance to do so. But against Starbreaker, yeah, he found out that they used them in the past and was controlling the Dark Nebula from the shadows. They tried to kidnap him. He hates the arrangement system since he sees it as a cheap way to get pet food for power. And sure, he warns Gingka, but why would he want his rival to lose at people he considers clowns? Heck, I don't even think he considers you a friend. In the comment section, tell me, who do you think is the first person Ryuga considered a friend? Is it Doji, Utendo, Kenta Yumiya, Gingka Hagane, or the original character in someone else's fan fiction? But by Fury, Ryuga was aware of the legendary bladers, and he could take stealing people's star fragments into his own. So from here, there's not anyone with a vendetta. So if the star fragment is choosing all these people that are supposed to be my equals in strength, why not just surpass them and prove myself the strongest by beating them, taking their power, and then stopping the god of destruction myself? But that's where Ryuga failed. Between Gingka and Kyoya and Yuki's refusal to sway to evil willingly, Aguma and Chris having personal vices, King and Dynamics accepting their roles, and Tutti just looking for friends, there was no way in heck that plan was going to work. And let's be honest, if he tried to fight the other 8 legendary bladers at once, he would lose. Or maybe I'm wrong on that one in the comment section, and tell me, if he fought all the other legendary bladers, do you think Ryuga would win or lose? So, that plan failed, and keep in mind, Nemesis was built up as a super powerful, dangerous threat that would require all of them to beat, which he learned of, and still refused to team up anyway because even in the lore, every time the God of Destruction was defeated, it was because of it being a group effort. And that's the problem. Ryuga realized too late Beyblade and always will be a group effort, and something that only gets stronger when you embrace the community behind it. Now, when it comes to this channel, I am self-aware in some aspects. I ain't perfect. I don't work on this channel as hard as I could, and or should have looked for multiple reasons. And because I talk about so many things that even just locking onto one topic would ironically be the best fit for me at the time, I'm not exactly the most ideal channel to talk about with Beyblade or with the community. For financial reasons and mental limitations, I don't talk about the toy line, which is half of the appeal of the Beyblade community, which gets me in hot water with at least 2 people in this community. I've been accused of rage baiting, despite at least explaining my point in almost every single video. The only Beyblade content creator to ever talk with me at least more than twice is Gabe. I don't show my face on camera for multiple and very valid reasons, especially given how toxic putting yourself online can be. And while the toy line and the media are still both popular, X is divisive amongst the community's efforts to put more pressure into making the real-life game more aware and competitive. To the point, I think Alamiros actually spoke to Hasbro executives, and I think even Hasbro should have put more effort into the Burst toy line and not change a bunch of names. But I came to a quick realization when I was scrolling on Twitter. Yes, I'm dead naming, but the guy who made it did the same thing to his own child, so I can make an exception here. And I saw Haru Ren's post where it was just a large group of people doing a countdown to Let It Rip. Okay, go shoot, but you know what I mean. And that's what motivated me to extend this video beyond just a skit. Because to some of you, I am part of the community. I mean, as much as I joke about the fact I don't like how Beyblade discourse was regarding the anime, especially when a good chunk of it relies on rage bait, there are YouTubers all like Gabe and Wildfang Edits that convinced me, well, at least got me to see if I can do this myself. So why did I tell you all to write Beyblade brings community in the comments? Because I want you to think about Burst for just a little bit when it comes to the villains and their mentality towards others in response to the community. Yeah, Louis a jerk, but he was willing to push those that could give him a good challenge to put a point where his respect and physical care for Vault, Iga, Drum to an extent, Hyuga, Lane, and even Bella improved since he wanted them to live up to their potential. It's why, despite his arrogance, he knew someone like Go was a better fit to lead Rideout than himself. Then you have Red Eye, who was busy trying to destroy everyone else, but deep down just wanted to properly face Vault in the finals in front of everyone and mentally isolated himself from everyone else, even letting himself become less empathetic to his opponent, all for the sake of his dream, to the point that he became more vicious than Louis. Fi almost forced almost all of Aiga's allies and rivals to work together to figure out how to properly defeat him, to the point one of the episodes is called Beyblade Heroes, and Aiga's corruption was partially because focusing on the Dark Resonance harmed his ability to listen to his Beyblade in exchange for more power, with Fi manipulating Aiga into relying on it more, distancing himself from his friends, destroying the blades of his allies even more to goad him into winning better in the first place, and Fi even went after his own brother for the sake of more power, only to lose to Aiga, who had help from everyone on how to properly beat him. Fi baited a community and lost to them putting their support on an Aiga, while he was just going around destroying everyone's attempts to blade, and also called himself the god of destruction. Arthur, for a lot of you guys really seem to hate, actually realized this since his plan wasn't to destroy Beyblade, but to overtake the WBBA with Hell as a replacement, or Inferno if you watch a dub, replacing an accepting community with one where the strongest survived and power decided battles, showing little concern or respect to the established status quo by breaking into Delta and Aiga's match by declaring weak people had no right to Beyblade, built a system that was hard for anyone to break into, required other strong bladers by recruiting them, taught Blind how to use the Dark Resonance, developed Dark Turbo as a sinister synchronization of their dark emotions with their Beyblade. The only reason Arthur failed is because he didn't keep up with the arms race of Drum and Delta's new systems being strong enough to keep up with the Infinite system, relied too much on Gwyn's Big Bang armor instead of using it to diversify his arsenal, and didn't put as much cooperative effort into working with Gwyn in their team battles, or had expected Amane, someone who, despite working much harder against, was still able to beat the Infinite Lock system and burst the Big Bang armor by strengthening his bond with his Beyblade further, pushing his abilities and special moves to their limit, and focusing all his power and turning Arthur's own strength against him in the most vulnerable position, and that's why Arthur lost. Why do people hate Arthur again when he's the only Burst villain to actually have a solid plan that was just undermined by his own fatal flaws as a character? Seriously, I can't be alone on this. If you agree with me, put Respect Arthur in the comments, so people who click on the video will be confused and wondering why everyone's talking about a PBS Kids show. See, Lane's problem with wanting to destroy the other legends was completely hollow, since after defeating them and losing to Shu, then beating them, he was kind of mentally struggling on what to do until the Legend Ultimate Tag Series Super League. Yes, I combined the name. One's underwhelming and the other one is overwhelming. And that was Shu trying to get him to see the value of working together, because turns out Beyblade's not a sport you can play by just yourself. Hence why he would have lost to Drum and Louis had Shu not stepped in, lost to a Gambit by Rentaro to get Vault to win, and solidified his flair into a friendship one. But lost Shu in the final battle and tried to solo two brothers who finally reached his level. Even Rashad. Rashad was actually part of the Beyblade community in the WBBA with BC Soul, but he turned Phenomenal and Bell into his villains and put himself as the hero for everyone to support while he beat down the villains, while also using his newfound status and strength amongst the new generation to bolster himself as a hero and turning his status on Volt's protege into wanting to surpass his mentor, but got so obsessed with defeating Valkyrie, and while I have some issues with the anime and manga and how they showed this, even after Basara left, at the very least, Basara pointed out that Rashad was being way too obsessed with victory, and even Ilya even left him temporarily in the anime and called him out for this in the manga. Heck, Pax's motivation was to get back into the community to do so. The problem was how he was treating his sister and how he was risking harming himself by imitating Red Eye. See, even in the villains in the original and Metal Saga recognize this too. Biovolt and Vega were about manipulating the children and taking control of the community financially to use the kids as a scheme for money and profit. Zio and his father just wanted him to become human, which only motivated him to become more human with his own ambitions to take on his friends. The Vega Bladers realized that they weren't a team but were just given the facade of one. Ziggurat was using other Bladers for Spiral Force energy, and DNA was also just trying to build their own blading league. See, Beyblade is not a sport you can compete on or by yourself or alone. As a Beyblade content creator, we in real life wouldn't even have the toy line or anime to have these discussions about, to have real life battles with, to have a community that continues to watch and support the franchise, or buy the games. And there's more than one way to be a fan. Yeah, there's going to be bad apples in every community, and you can just enjoy some of these things on your own time. But even if you're by yourself, you're still engaging in a product that was created by multiple people. And if someone tries to destroy that, people are going to band together to protect it. Ryuga realized too late that he was part of that community, meaning Rago died trying to fight a global community that was willing to band together to ensure their survival, and that even the god of destruction itself would lose its power and cultivation of creation. And here's the ultimate truth. Ryuga can't beat Rago, but in his final moments, as he gave Kenta the Star Fragment, assuming he's dead, if he's not, he probably did survive, and now Drago's probably been healing his body to help him fight his injuries just in case, right? But regardless, Ryuga proved he was the better person. Not when he used Life Destructor though. Why? Because he finally learned his lesson through Kenta. Think about everything Kenta was trying to do in that final season. Kenta tried bringing Ryuga into the community by getting stronger, challenging him, proving to Ryuga, legendary blader or not, the blading world is not one where you could just be alone or be at the top by yourself. That mentality is what the god of destruction wanted, where he is the only one alone in a husk of the earth, rendering it devoid of everything that makes the earth what it is. And Ryuga gave the blader, who tried to grow the closest to him, his own will to make up for his mistakes and inherit the flames to help the heroes fire a shot through the evil he could not face alone. So, no, Ryuga in Season 1 could not have defeated Rago in a battle. But the one thing Ryuga beats Rago in is that he fought to maintain his humanity, and he had the humility to accept that back in Season 1 and Season 2. What fell down in Season 3 is that he was so focused on the concept of winning that he forgot that he was only human. And once he realized that, he was able to carry on that humanity to his allies so that they can finish the fight in his honor. So yes, Ryuga lost, but in the end, he reminds us that we are human, and a well-structured, united community of humanity will always triumph over destruction. So, the fun part about being a fan of all the Beyblade seasons or having the knowledge about them is that all of them have overlapping elements and similarities, and even with the differences, the idea of community is something that's been present since the very beginning. Tyson would not be where he is without Kenny. Jingo wouldn't have made it this far without the help of his friends, father, and allies. Vol was a complete dunce when he made it far thanks to being a genuinely good dude who, despite getting an ego, was trying to work through his problems in a healthy manner. With Aiga having to learn how to do so, Drum trying to do so and help out others to grow alongside himself, Hikaru and Hyuga wanting to catch up to the people who inspired them, Bell not having other people besides his grandfather, everyone supporting Pre and saving Pax, and even with Persona, Bird's heart, X's passion, Moti's dedication, Tenka's ambition, and even Nine's concern about stopping her family, only bore fruit because they had each other to support and help one another. Even in Bay Wheels, one of the main plot points for that first half was that Team Estrella needed to find more people in order to help them defeat the Dominators. They had a team of 3, and yet it wasn't enough, so they recruited, made some new friends, got some new allies in the process, and were able to push that growth and positivity onto another world that was also struggling with its issues. Oh wow, this video was not meant to be this long. I swear I thought this was going to be 15 minutes at best. But I started coming up with this at like 3 p.m. on Saturday, but I fell asleep and didn't finish until I woke up and finished it at 3 a.m. in the morning. funny how that works out. So when will you get this video? I'll see, expect it between Sunday and Saturday at the latest, depending on if I manage to clear some storage space, since making these videos can be productive and unproductive in the long run. Plus, I want to make some smaller videos, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully, I get this out as soon as I can, but when you guys watch it, I want you all to give me my thoughts, because this is a very nuanced topic that came out of something that can be very unnuanced, so I really want your opinions on this. Like, leave every comment or thought you have for me. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because I really want to get to 750 subscribers. And BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, signing off.